They thought I was a fool. For 30 years, they laughed at me. They mocked me, drained every dollar they could from me. And when everything came crashing down, they cried for help. But guess what? I had a secret I built, day by day, while they wasted everything. And when the storm finally came, I didn't lift a finger to save them. If that just gave you chills, good. Stick with me, because today you're about to hear one of the most satisfying, emotional, and ruthless real-life stories of patience, betrayal, and ultimate revenge. Before we dive deep, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. And make sure you smash that subscribe button so you never miss a story that hits you right in the soul. Now, let's get into it. I grew up in a family where loyalty was supposed to be everything. At least, that's what they preached. But actions told a very different story. From a young age, I learned a brutal truth. In my family, loyalty only went one way. They expected me to work, to sacrifice, to give. But when it came to supporting me, protecting me, even just standing beside me, crickets, silence, averted eyes. I was the youngest of 5 siblings, and somehow, always the responsible one, the reliable one, the one who'll figure it out. You know what that meant, right? Whenever anyone made a mistake, I cleaned it up. Whenever anyone ran out of money, I covered it. And whenever anyone needed a scapegoat, I took the fall. For a long time, I thought that's just what family meant. I was wrong. So, when I turned 22, I made a decision that would change everything. But no one knew it yet. I started saving money in secret. At first, it was tiny. I was working 2 jobs. One in a small local shop, the other doing odd freelance gigs online. After taxes, bills, rent, and yes, endless family emergencies, I had almost nothing left. But every single week, even if it was just $5, $10, I squirreled it away into a private account nobody knew about. Why secret? Because I learned the hard way. If they knew you had it, they'd find a way to take it. And if you're wondering, wasn't that a bit paranoid? No, not at all. Because the betrayals were already piling up. Birthday money stolen. Savings borrowed and never returned. One sibling even forged my signature once to open a credit card. I found out when debt collectors started calling. Every time I confronted them, it was the same pathetic chorus. Come on, you know we're family. You're doing fine. Help us out. Don't be selfish. Selfish. That word burned into my brain. I realized they only called me selfish when I refused to let them drain me dry. So I made a promise to myself. Never again. Not only was I going to protect myself, one day I would stand back and watch them face the consequences of their own greed. And I wouldn't lift a single finger to save them. The next 30 years, a grind. I'm not going to sit here and pretend it was easy. There were nights I skipped dinners to save $20. There were months where I worked 80 hours a week just to keep pushing that secret number higher. Meanwhile, my family, partying, shopping, flexing on social media, buying new cars they couldn't afford, taking vacations they had no business taking, and still, calling me the cheap one, the boring one, the no-fun sibling. I smiled through it all, because every year my secret grew. I wasn't just saving cash under a mattress either. I learned, I studied, I invested smart. Stocks, bonds, real estate funds, even some early crypto when Bitcoin was under $500. Quietly, patiently, I was building a future that no one could touch. And they were digging themselves deeper and deeper into a hole. Credit card debt, personal loans, mortgage defaults. It was like watching a slow-motion train wreck, a wreck I had warned them about 1,000 times. But nobody listens to the boring one. Fast forward. I was 52, still grinding, but finally at a point where I could breathe. My secret fund? Massive. Enough to retire comfortably. Enough to help others too, if they deserved it. And then the recession hit. Almost overnight, the economy tanked. Jobs vanished. Credit lines got cut. All those toys and houses they owned. Suddenly, they couldn't keep up the payments. And guess what happened next? One by one, like clockwork, they came knocking. First with the usual guilt trips. Then with desperate sob stories. Finally, with flat-out begging. Please, just lend us a little. We'll pay you back. We're family. You're our only hope. I looked into their eyes. The same eyes that laughed at me, mocked me, used me. And I said, no, not cruelly, not dramatically, just a calm, clear no. I'm sorry. I have to look out for myself now, just like you always told me to. The shock on their faces, priceless. Word spread fast through the family. Suddenly, I was the villain, the traitor, the selfish one. Again. But you know what? This time, I didn't care. Because while they scrambled, selling off their junk, downsizing into tiny apartments, facing lawsuits and bankruptcies, I sat in my cozy little house, debt-free, stress-free, sipping my coffee, watching the sun rise. I had waited 30 years for this. 30 years of being the responsible one, the punchline, the doormat. Now, I was free, not just financially, emotionally. I didn't owe them anything anymore. Not my money, not my time, not my peace. They had spent 3 decades living for today. I spent 3 decades living for tomorrow. And today had finally come. If you take anything from my story, let it be this. People will call you selfish when you stop letting them use you. Stay the course. Build your future. Protect your peace. Because one day, they will face the consequences of their choices. And you'll be exactly where you always knew you would be. Free. The anger didn't stop after I said no. Oh no. If anything, it grew. Exploded. I started getting texts, calls, long, venomous voicemails accusing me of betrayal. At first, I tried to ignore them. Then, the public smear campaign began. Posts on Facebook, snarky little jabs on Instagram, family gossip circulating like wildfire. Can you believe how heartless they've become? After everything we did for them, everything they did for me, you mean stealing from me, using me, abandoning me when I needed help. The irony was rich. I stayed silent, didn't take the bait, didn't post back, didn't defend myself, because by then, I understood something important. The truth doesn't need defending, especially not to people who are only angry because they lost their favorite punching bag. The first in-person explosion came at a family gathering, my mother's 80th birthday. Everyone was there, everyone pretending to be nice. Plastic smiles, hollow hugs, but you could feel it. The tension, thick and sour in the air. Halfway through the dinner, after a few too many drinks, my eldest brother stood up, glass in hand, red-faced, seething. Some people in this family think they're too good for the rest of us now, he slurred. All eyes turned to me. I set my fork down, calmly, didn't say a word. Too good to remember where they came from, he spat. Too good to help out when their own family is drowning. Still, I said nothing, because when you're truly at peace, their chaos can't pull you under. Finally, he barked, "What? You think you're better than us now because you hoarded your money?" And that's when I smiled, a small, genuine smile. "No," I said, my voice steady. I'm not better than you. I'm just not responsible for you. Dead silence. You could have heard a pin drop. I stood up, kissed my mother on the cheek, and walked out. And for the first time in my life, I didn't look back. As I drove home that night, flashes of the past rushed back like a bitter movie reel. The Christmas, when I was 16, working 2 jobs to buy gifts, only to have my presents stolen by my own siblings and pawned for beer money. The time I needed $500 for a security deposit on an apartment, and no one could spare a dime, even though they'd all just come back from a beach vacation. The countless birthdays, promotions, graduations that went unnoticed because I wasn't flashy enough to be worth celebrating. Years of small, sharp betrayals. Each one another brick in the wall I had built around my heart, and yet they still expected me to show up like a loyal dog whenever they snapped their fingers. Not anymore. Over the next few years, karma worked its magic. One brother lost his house after defaulting on 3 different loans. Another sister went through a brutal divorce, her ex dragging her through court for every penny. A cousin who always bragged about living large ended up living back at his parents' house at 45. 2 siblings filed for bankruptcy. The universe has a way of balancing the scales when you least expect it. Meanwhile, I kept living simply, quietly, gratefully. Took vacations when I wanted. Nothing flashy, just peaceful. Helped real friends who had proven they would have my back when times were tough. Donated to causes that actually helped people. I lived on my own terms. And it was worth every single lonely night, every painful lesson. Of course, things weren't over just yet. One of my sisters, desperate, drowning in debt, furious that I wouldn't bail her out, tried to sue me. You read that right. She filed a ridiculous small claim suit, arguing that I owed her money because of some imaginary verbal agreement we had years ago. It was laughable, but she was banking on me just paying her off to avoid the hassle. She didn't know me at all. I fought back, hard. Got the best attorney money could buy. The case got thrown out in under 10 minutes. The judge even reprimanded her for wasting the court's time. And as I walked out of that courtroom, head high, I realized something profound. When you stop enabling toxic people, they get desperate. But their downfall is always their own doing. You don't have to destroy them. They destroy themselves. The sweetest moment wasn't the courtroom victory. It wasn't even watching them flounder financially. It was this. One ordinary Tuesday morning, sipping coffee on my porch, feeling the warm sun on my face, and realizing I was finally living for myself. Not for their approval, not for their emergencies, not for their endless, bottomless needs. Just me, whole, free, and no amount of money could buy that feeling. If you're in a situation like mine, if you're the responsible one, the boring one, the one everyone leeches off of, hear me when I say this. Protect your peace. Protect your future. Protect yourself. Because when the storm comes, and it will come, the ones who spent their whole lives mocking you will be the first ones begging for your umbrella. And the greatest revenge is simply not needing to be their shelter anymore. I wish I could tell you the betrayal started when we were adults, that somehow we all had a fair shot growing up, and people just made different choices later. But the truth is, the rot started early. I was 7 the first time I realized family didn't always mean safe. It was a summer afternoon. My oldest brother, the golden child, came home furious after blowing all his allowance at the arcade. He stormed into my room, tore open my little piggy bank, and emptied it into his pockets. I screamed, cried, told my parents, but instead of punishing him, They shrugged. "It's just a few dollars," they said. "Don't be so dramatic." Lesson learned. Nobody was coming to save me. Over and over, small cuts accumulated. Birthday gifts, borrowed, and never returned. College savings quietly siphoned off to help a cousin nobody even liked. Car loan co-signed without asking me. Ruining my credit when they defaulted. Every betrayal wrapped in the same poisonous words. Family first, unless you were me. I internalized it for a long time. Thought maybe I was the problem. Maybe if I gave more, loved harder, forgave faster, they'd finally treat me like I mattered. Spoiler, they didn't. So when I started my secret fund at 22, it wasn't just about money. It was about survival. It was about finally loving myself the way no one else ever had. After the lawsuit failed, you'd think they'd back off, right? Wrong. Desperation breeds insanity. Next, my second eldest sister, the sweet one, the one who always pretended to be the peacemaker, reached out with a different strategy. Blackmail. She dug up old family secrets, things I had trusted her with years ago. Personal, painful things, struggles, mistakes, heartbreaks. She threatened to expose them to the whole extended family unless I gave her just a small loan to get back on her feet. Reading that message, I didn't even feel angry. I felt nothing, because that's the thing about emotional survival. Eventually, you get so strong that their worst weapons don't even leave a scratch. I replied with a single line. "Do what you have to do. I'll live either way." She never followed through, because bullies, real bullies, are cowards underneath it all. Now, you're probably wondering, just how big did that secret fund get? Big. Bigger than I ever imagined when I started. Through careful investing, smart moves, sheer patience, by the time I was 55, that secret account had ballooned to over $4.7 million. $4.7 million. And remember, I lived modestly. I wasn't buying yachts or gold chains. I wasn't flashing it on Instagram. I was just safe, independent, free. And the most poetic part? Almost every time one of them borrowed a few hundred here, a few thousand there, swearing they'd pay me back, it pushed me to save harder, smarter. Their betrayal made me rich, and they didn't even realize it. Life went on. We grew older. Connections frayed. Phone calls became rare, until one day, the inevitable call came. My father had passed away. Despite everything, I went to the funeral. Not for them, for me. Closure. The service was somber. Lots of crocodile tears. Lots of fake sobbing from people who hadn't visited him once in the nursing home. After the burial, as we all stood in the reception hall, my mother pulled me aside. Tired, broken, real tears in her eyes this time. "You were always the strong one," she said, voice cracking. "The one who had to survive all of us." And in that moment, I forgave her. Not because she deserved it, but because I deserved peace. Then came the bombshell. She handed me an envelope. Inside, the official documents. Turns out, years ago, without telling anyone, my father had changed his will. Probably after seeing how everyone treated him once he wasn't useful anymore. He left everything, what little he had left, to me. His only explanation, scrawled in shaky handwriting at the bottom of the page: "You were the only one who ever showed real loyalty. Use this to keep building your life." The inheritance wasn't huge. A small house, a few investments. But standing there, reading that note, surrounded by greedy, furious faces, it felt bigger than any jackpot. As the family circled, demanding to know what was in the envelope, I smiled, pulled out my phone, opened a simple Word document I had prepared months ago, just in case. It was titled, "A Few Things You Should Know." And right there, in front of them all, I calmly read it aloud. How much I had saved. How they had unknowingly fueled my success with every betrayal. How I didn't owe a single one of them a cent. How forgiveness doesn't always mean reconciliation. Their faces, shock, rage, humiliation. I finished reading, folded the paper, put my phone back in my pocket. Then I smiled, really smiled, from a place of deep, unshakable peace, and walked away. I never saw most of them again. Today my life is simple. I travel when I want. I volunteer with organizations that actually make a difference. I mentor young people, teaching them what I wish someone had taught me at 22. I'm not rich in the flashy sense, but I'm wealthy in all the ways that matter. Freedom, peace, self-respect, and every so often, when the ghosts of the past creep up, a bitter memory, a twinge of sadness, I remind myself, I didn't just survive. I won, not because I destroyed them, but because I built a life they can't even comprehend. Time has a funny way of peeling back people's masks. A few years after that funeral blowout, the messages started coming again. First, timid, then desperate. "Hey, long time no talk. Hope you're doing well. You know, we were thinking it's time for a family reunion. Things are different now. We've all grown up." Different? Grown up? Maybe. Maybe not. What I knew for sure was that they hadn't changed for me. They had changed for themselves. Their own loneliness, their own brokenness, their own desperate need for a safety net, now that the bridges they burned were nothing but ash. Once, I might have been tempted. Once, the little kid inside me might have thought, maybe now they'll love me for real. But the adult me, the healed, whole me, knew better. So, I responded simply, "I wish you peace and healing, but I no longer set myself on fire to keep others warm." And then, I blocked their numbers, all of them, because you don't owe anyone access to you, just because you share DNA. A few months after that, I did something I hadn't dared to do in decades. I drove back to the old neighborhood, back to that crumbling little house where the betrayal started, where broken promises hung heavier in the air than the curtains. It was abandoned now, boards on the windows, weeds choking the yard. Funny how places can hold memories like scars. I stood at the rusted gate, heart pounding, remembering, the piggy bank ripped open, the bruises hidden under sleeves, the nights crying myself to sleep, wondering what I had done wrong. But I also remembered the first time I hid a $20 bill under a floorboard, swearing I'd never be powerless again. The late nights reading library books about saving, investing, building, the way I promised myself, over and over, I will not end up like them. I didn't need to go inside. I didn't need to reclaim anything from that house. I already had. I stood there a few more minutes, breathed in, breathed out. Then I turned and walked away. For the last time, a year later, out of nowhere, I got a letter, real paper, handwritten. It was from my mother, short, shaky handwriting. You could tell it cost her everything to write it. "I'm sorry. You deserved better. I see it now. I'm proud of you. No begging for money, no guilt trips. Just words I never thought I'd hear." I cried when I read it, not because I needed her forgiveness anymore, but because sometimes the people who hurt you most are also the ones trapped in their own cages. I didn't reply, but I kept the letter, not out of sentimentality, but as proof you can outgrow your past and still honor your own healing. You might wonder, what did you do with the $4.7 million? Here's the thing. After everything, I realized It was never about the money. It was about freedom. So I lived comfortably, yes, but also, I set up scholarships for kids who came from nothing. I funded emergency shelters for abuse survivors. I invested in community centers that actually listen to the people they serve. Because real wealth isn't what you hoard, it's what you build that outlives you. My name's not on any flashy plaques. I don't care about that. What matters is that somewhere, out there, a scared kid, crying themselves to sleep like I once did. They're going to get a chance I never had. And that's the only revenge I ever needed. Breaking the cycle. Here's the truth they don't tell you. Sometimes your family is not your team. Sometimes the people who are supposed to protect you are the first ones who betray you. Sometimes love has conditions. Ugly, suffocating conditions. But you can still choose yourself. You can still save quietly, work silently, grow slowly. You can still build a life so beautiful, so unshakable, that no one who doubted you, used you, or mocked you could ever touch it. Your success, your peace, your freedom. It's the loudest, most beautiful revenge imaginable, and you owe it to the scared, broken version of yourself, the one who sat in the dark, promising to find a way out, to keep that promise. So if you're watching this, if you're sitting there feeling like the underdog, like the forgotten one, like the one who's always left picking up the pieces, hear me. You are not weak. You are not crazy. You are not wrong for wanting more. Start small. Start scared. Start angry if you have to. Just start. Because one day, years from now, you'll look back at the ashes they left you, and you'll realize you didn't just survive. You built a fire so fierce they could never burn you again.